Jim Fox, I'll be acting chairman tonight. We'll call the meeting of February 17th to order. We will table any minutes approval. Our clerk is not here tonight. First up is approval not required. Applicant Cumberland Farms to combine the properties known as 10 Figueredo Lane and 212 T-Ticket Highway, East Falmouth, Coastal Engineering, the company. So, this is it in front of us right here, right?
Yeah.
Do we have any for the applicant here?
Mr. Fox, members of the board, I'm Bob Ament. I'm a Falmouth attorney. I represent Cumberland Farms, Inc. And this plan simply merges two existing lots of record to create a single lot. The single lot is the locus that the planning board has reviewed in connection with a proposed new convenience store to go along with the self-serve gas station already at the site. So you've seen what's going to be on the plan. This merely merges two lots. Since it doesn't show a subdivision, the planning board should endorse it. Approval not required.
I can't figure out where that is. It's the Sunoco station.
What is it?
The Sunoco station.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Driftwood Plaza.
And their road here.
That's
Figueredo Way.
Figueredo Way, yeah. That's the right of way.
Yeah.
There was two lots, remember, and they had a
Yeah.
U-Haul, and
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
other things here.
Yeah, it's just combining into the one.
You all set, huh?
Yeah.
Anybody?
I don't see any issue.
We got a... Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, I just wonder if the staff has any comments?
No, it's a perimeter plan. It's entitled to your endorsement, approval not required.
I move that we endorse,
Yeah, go ahead.
I move that we endorse the approval not required plan for...
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thank you. Second plan. Applicant Matthew Philbrook to adjust the lot lines at 2 Scallop and 110 Central Avenue, resulting in an equal exchange of lot area in East Falmouth. Falmouth Engineering plan.
Where is this? Lemonade.
Okay, so what are we smoking?
Is there somebody here for this?
Yeah. Anyone here for the applicant?
Oh, I see.
Okay, here we go.
Evening, Mr. Fox, members of the board. My name is Kevin Clower. I'm an attorney here in Falmouth with Ament Law Firm, and I represent Matthew and Elizabeth Philbrook this evening. What we have is a fairly simple land swap of, thank you very much, Mr. Hurd, of equal portions of land. This is being done to provide for access from 110 Central onto Scallop Cove, rather than onto Central Avenue. They are taking 4,500 square feet of land here and 4,500 square feet of land here, and simply swapping the ownership, and going to merge these lots into the new lots as shown on the plan.
Now I see. Okay, so this is going to be down here. This is going to be this one.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I see.
okay, yeah.
Could you point out the two swaps again?
Yes, so we have this 4,500 square foot section here, and then this 4,500 square foot section here.
Okay, parcel A and parcel B on this plan.
Parcel A is coming out of Lot 6 and becoming part of Lot 1, and parcel B is coming out of Lot 1 and becoming part of parcel 6.
And the purpose is to have the driveway
onto Skelton
on
Cove.
this- And they want onto Central Ave is going to be eliminated?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, I can see why you'd want to do that.
Are you all set?
Yeah, I have no questions.
Ken?
I make a motion that we approve this property swap A&R as required by the applicant.
Endorse, right?
Oh,
Motion endorse,
Motion to endorse.
seconded.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All set,
Thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is a discussion. The applicant, Louis Larry, preliminary plan to subdivide 10.92 acres into 7 lots on West Falmouth Highway. Vacant land across from Chase Road, West Falmouth. Warwick and Associates, the engineer. Who do we have for the applicant?
Thank you. My name is Paul Glenn from Glenn Law Offices. I represent Lou Larry, who's here tonight. He's the applicant. And I'd like to put these two plans up on the board so they can be seen.
We don't have those. We're done with this, right? No, I don't have that one.
And let him have a look.
Just ask. One moment, Mr. Chairman. Paul, do you have an extra set of drawings for the chairman?
An extra, why don't you take these two?
No.
Well, we can
No,
stretch.
we'll scrunch.
It's okay. We're good.
You good? Okay. Okay, so Lou Larry is here tonight. He's the applicant. He's a retired educator from Falmouth High School. And Gary Labrie from Warwick is the engineer. He couldn't make it here tonight. The goal of all of this is to create a cluster subdivision under Article 25 of the bylaws. But tonight, we have before you a preliminary plan that's part of the process to show you that a traditional grid subdivision can be created. And this one here would be the traditional grid subdivision, right here. And this is the open space planned subdivision here. They both have 6 lots.
It's the traditional one. Okay. Put this on top of it.
6 or 7 lots?
6.
7 on
There's- What?
It's 7 on the grid, isn't it?
Yeah, the grid's showing 7 lots.
Okay.
There's a bump.
Okay, and the cluster is showing 6.
It's a bump.
The grid showing 7, just to, right. There was even a plan that showed 8, but they didn't like that. And the 6-lot planned subdivision was a result of conversations with the town planner and different problems that we try to solve by just having 6. So we have the grid and that. And in order to do a planned subdivision, you have to show the board that you're capable of putting in a traditional grid subdivision. And I think we do that. In the traditional grid subdivision, the only waiver that would be required would be for the 500-foot dead end requirement. One of your subdivision regulations says that you can't have a dead end more than 500 feet. And that would be the only one that we would need if we were going with the traditional grid subdivision. Okay. And your bylaws allow you to waive that 500-foot requirement if there are good reasons to do it.
is up. So-
Very big.
Okay. So, in order to be able to apply for this planned development, you have to have at least 5 acres in a residential B district. And this particular parcel has more than 10 acres, but there's a definition in the bylaw that excludes some protected areas, and it excludes areas with a greater than a 25% grade. And he shows you in there, it's about, the whole area is about 475,000 square feet, so well over 10 acres. But when you take away 50,000 square feet, which is the portion that's more than a 25% grade, you're well over 5 acres there. So it meets that. And so this property, if you're wondering where it is, it's between 28A and 28, between the highway and 28A. So it'd be east of 28A, and it's north of Brick Hill Road, and it's south of Thomas Landers Road. And it's near Chase, but it's right across from Eric Clausen Lane, also there. So, shifting over to really the what we want is the end result is the planned residential development. The idea of this is to, instead of having a traditional grid, what you'll see from Route 28A, as you drive by, is you'll see really just some houses scattered in the woods. You won't see a major street coming up there. And if you look at in the bylaw, there are 7 criteria that the board would look at to see whether this is worthy of approval. And I think we meet them all. We're not saving any, I won't read them all to you. There are 7 of them. We're not protecting any existing agriculture, and we're not protecting any existing recreation that's there. But it really is a good plan, a good use of the property, and it protects the scenic vistas and the integrity of the land, which you're looking at. So this is the planned development here. 2 driveways. 4 of them would share one driveway. 2 of them would share the other driveway, with contiguous open space all around it. We're keeping the stone wall that had been there. They planned the open space and the driveways around that. There's an existing path up there that very easily can just be touched to make it all within the open space. And it works out to be about 57% is open space when you look at it.
It's very steep. This is what they did. They dumped all the open space.
So you have the 2 plans. I think I gave you a summary of it. They're happy to answer any questions for you tonight. The procedure, how it goes, we present this preliminary plan, and then we'd have to come back with a definitive plan, not for the grid one, but for the planned subdivision. We'd come back after a discussion to see whether this is the way the board would like to see it developed, and if you have any ideas for it. A lot of thought went into this. We've been back and forth with the town planner several times, and I think Mr. Larry has gone out of his way to not make this an intrusive plan by reducing it down to 6 lots and by creating this planned subdivision.
Brian, do you have any comments on this preliminary plan?
Discussion of the board.
Anybody else? starting with?
I do have a question. The open space, who would maintain the open space on the plan?
Well, it tells you in the bylaw that you have to create some type of business entity that will manage it. So this is nothing that'll be done in a great hurry, but the end part of it would be a deed going to an association that would have title to it and would be responsible for maintaining it there, yeah. And be all 6 owners would be part of it.
Or just to follow up on that.
Go ahead.
You talked about the path being relocated, and I'm looking here. Is that path on a deed, or is it a part of the properties now, or what is the deal with that path?
Well, it's within the parcel. Lou does logging from time to time, and he just likes to go up there. And it's not a right-of-way to any place else, if that's what you...
I noticed that it starts out of the property.
Well, down by the street.
Still the same property.
Yeah. Down by the street, that is the existing path, the way he shows it, right there. And I think you can drive a Jeep up there now. I haven't done it. And we'd just cut off part of it so it wouldn't be on, this would just be a natural feature that we'd like to keep. It's not a means to go anywhere or get anywhere. It'd just be part of the nature. The people that live there could take a walk, and if they wanted to, yeah.
Doug?
So I see the road, you're asking for the variance on the 500-foot road length, and this road's almost 700 feet, and it seems like the grid plan should show what could be built without a variance. How many lots would you get if you had only a 500-foot road?
I think it still would be 7, but that wouldn't be the way you do it, though. It'd just be more cutting and more asphalt, but you still could have 7, is what he just thinks that's a good question. That's a good question. Why not just show one without that wouldn't require any type of waiver? But I think he tried to show you the type of plan that he'd bring before you if it was a grid subdivision, instead of circling around having the 2 curb cuts and everything else, And the location in the end plan, the location is designed for safety where it's not on a sharper curve.
No, I agree with it. It's a whole different,
Yeah,
the cluster changes it completely, but
yeah.
we quickly jump to the cluster plan before we really figure out, usually,
The-
if the grid makes sense.
If the grid, there is a way that you could do it without that, but it wouldn't be the best way to do it,
Okay.
yeah.
Doug, you all set? Ralph?
Yeah, Brian, we wouldn't be asking for public comment or voting on this tonight, right? This is just a first look at it.
It's the first look at it. You may ask for public comment tonight, but I won't have a motion for you until next week. So this is just an opportunity to discuss the various options with the applicant and with the public.
Well, the 305-10 says that if we're going to ask for public comment, we have to notify the abutters 1 week in advance. So I don't think we've done, we didn't read that
Paul isn't
that
here, that's why.
notification.
Paul isn't here, that's why we didn't have the notification.
The,
I know, but
18
if-
abutters
if
were
we did,
notified?
if we did do a notification,
Yeah, 18 abutters
We-
were notified by registered mail.
that's what I'm asking for.
The answer to the question, you may recall, you actually noticed this twice. We had to cancel one meeting, and then we re-noticed it and re-notified the abutters.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that. That's why I asked.
Yep, no problem.
Sorry, I read it very quietly to Bob. I didn't say it very loud. Excuse me, Ralph. We were looking
He's
for
new at
Paul
the
to do
job.
that.
So I have another question.
Yes, Doug.
So, next question would be then, if we're in the coastal pond overlay but not a water recharge. Is there any plans for any denitrification systems?
I don't think there are plans. They're going to be very big lots still, even with the reduced, and it's over a large area. No plans have been talked about that. I mean, that, you know.
Is anyone here from the public that would like to speak to this plan?
It's also, if you want, it's on the in the national habitat area too. So before anything gets built here, we have to send it up to the state to comment upon that. And we're anticipating that the state will say, you need about 70% open space for this area. So we'll be restricting in the future parts of these lots for non-disturbance, not just non-build, but non-disturbance at all within the lot. That's just something that happens as part of the state process there with it. You know, so there'll be additional restrictions put on this property because of that by the state. Okay, I'll sit down. Thank you.
Yes, sir, come up and to the microphone.
May or may not be relevant,
Can you
but I
step-
own a
excuse me.
property at 106.
Excuse me, sir,
Ambleside
could you
Drive.
step up to the podium and state your name and speak into the microphone so people at home could hear you?
Richard Bowen, 106 Ambleside Drive. And I'd like to know, we just recently returned from vacation and got the notification of a development being planned behind our property. Is this the piece of land? The reason I ask is because we had no opportunity to look at this because of the timing. Yesterday was a holiday and all that.
Yes, it is. Ambleside Drive is the street right next door here. This is a preliminary meeting. There'll be another one for
Okay, I
public
just
discussion to
wanted to
get
be
two shots
assured
at this.
That a 60-foot buffer is maintained.
It's gonna be more than that with the cluster.
That's the minimum here, 65.
Well, there's only a 25-foot strip there.
Yeah, I mean, is there a requirement for a 60-foot buffer?
I'm not sure where the location is, but accept the
That's
comments.
in our deed.
Accept the
Oh.
comment with the. and
Well,
we'll
it
take
looks
a look at
like,
it,
from
but-
reading the plan, the closest point, oh, that's not 65 feet.
I would,
We'll take that into, we'll take that comment.
right, there you go.
Thank you. This is a preliminary meeting. We're taking comments. We're not giving answers. We'll have another shot at it. There'll be a definitive plan that comes up, and there'll be a hearing and discussion and a whole process. This is a preliminary plan that the applicant's given all of us a chance, us and yourselves, to get a look-see at it first to help smooth the process along. So
Okay.
that's,
I have a question.
But I don't notice anything on here that shows it. That's all.
Could you just point out where your property is?
Let's see.
Do you know the Tars? Yes. Their property's down at the bottom. By the scale, the
Right there.
graphics, that's the top property.
No, ours is here.
so
Okay.
then you're not even,
We're not even on there.
well, you're a 300-foot abutter. Yeah, you're a 300-foot abutter. You're abutter for notice purposes only, yeah.
Well, I have a question. Mr. Bowen, what is the buffer that you're referring to between
Our
what?
property,
Your property and this development?
yes, and the adjacent properties on both sides have a 60-foot buffer beyond our property line defined in the deed,
In your deed?
in our deed, yes.
Well, that has to be your property then. That 60 feet is your property, is that correct?
Let's,
Well, I'm not sure. And the reason I'm not sure is because the deed shows it as a buffer, 60 feet wide. Now, what does that mean?
We're good. I don't think it applies to this, but we'll have the applicant do some research and we'll make sure we know about it the next time. We'll take a look at that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. My name is David Berman. I'm an attorney, and I represent the abutters over here who are David Stafford, William Stafford, and Jane Duggan. They own this property right in here, which is to the south and the east of the subject property.
Stafford.
And I simply want to point out that the road, as you see it on this property, does not touch the adjacent property, which would leave the adjacent property landlocked. This road almost touches it. It doesn't come quite down to it, but it comes very close to it. I simply wish to point out to you that the design standards for streets under Section 30524 of the subdivision regulations of this board say, provision shall be made for the proper projection of streets to adjoining property. And of course, we are certainly adjoining property. And that's 30524.2. 30524.3 says, reserve strips preventing access to streets or adjoining property shall not be permitted except where, in the opinion of the board, such strips shall be in the public interest. Well, I think when you read both of those, we definitely, any road that gets approved should be a road which the Staffords and Ms. Duggan can, if they should at some point in the future, they have no immediate plans to do so, wish to develop their property, they can use. That's our only position on this. And we think not right now that neither of these plans meets this requirement of the regulations. Thank you for listening to me.
Yes, ma'am?
Linda Okagawa from 821 West Falmouth Highway. I am an abutter. I'm over here. And I would, oh no, I'm here, excuse me, right here. I would like to speak in favor of the cluster zoning because I'm quite familiar with the terrain there, and I think that makes the best use of the property, and it has some very nice features for, you know, preservation and sharing of wooded land with the whole complex. So, and the other thing that I don't like about the street is because I pull out of my driveway to right in that area, and the way the street is right across from Eric Clausen, I think it's a dangerous location, and you don't want to have more cars coming out and, you know, all condensed into that one entry onto 28A. People come really fast over there, and it's really difficult. Now, if you have, you know, several ways of getting into two other driveways, like in this plan, I think you would be less likely to have that kind of problem. So basically, my initial reaction is that the cluster zoning would make a very quality development. You'd have a lot of open space and walking paths and things like that, and attract some good development of homes. And the other one, they kind of crammed in there, and some of the lots are less buildable than others. And the road, I worry about the drainage and so forth if you have a lot of asphalt in that area. You see drainage coming down the hill, and it puddles in places and things like that. So.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Good?
So I haven't met either of the other two people before tonight, so I appreciate the comments from one of the neighbors. So I'd have to spend more time looking at the subdivision regulations to comment on the first one, but I'm very confident that nowhere in the subdivision regulations will there be a requirement that one person has to build a road to benefit the land of another person's. It just, so we have to bring them out and read them a little more carefully, but I'm not sure what their status is. I think here's their land, but the idea that we have to build a road to service their land, I mean, that just is not in the town subdivision regulation. So we spent a lot of time in this to make it to really make the least amount of asphalt as possible, to just have all this happen right from 28A and keep as much open space as possible. And I think the engineers succeeded very well with that, with it. So I'll at the preliminary hearing, the definitive hearing, I'll look more carefully at the other attorney's comments there and be ready for it. But there's the idea that we're going to build a road for another piece of land, it doesn't make sense. I would like, if you're part of the discussion, comment, criticize, praise how it's done, in case we need any.
I have a question. What's the thought process behind parcel B on the grid plan? The little wedge. It's called out. If you see it, it's a butterfly type shape. What's going on there?
That's a good question too. What's going on there? I think he's fulfilling some requirement of the subdivision regulations.
That's what I was wondering if it was the point that was being made. I was just trying to get an understanding if that's what was.
It's an unbuildable lot. And I was able to talk to him today. I saw that and I didn't ask him that question. I saw that, why do you have that little thing? And I think that could be the only reason why it would be. There's something in your subdivision regulations.
So we'll discuss that next time? Get an understanding what that is?
I will, yeah, parcel B. Yeah.
No,
What?
A little dead zone there by the end of it.
It's what the attorney for the abutter is referring to. It's not.
I thought so, yeah, I just wanted to,
It's called Spites.
It is, that would be the abutting parcel. Right.
it's this little wedge here blown up, that's what it is.
I know.
That's your neighbor's road access.
I didn't hear.
Neighbor's road access there.
I just said I hope that wasn't the road profile, so.
There is a road profile in there that it's a three-part set of plans. And there's a preliminary road profile in there too.
Yeah, we don't have that.
We only have two today.
We only have two.
The preliminary stage, the road profile is not reviewed.
Right, yeah, because we're probably not going to do it. But,
Just a preliminary comment on the plan as far as the cluster versus the other grid plan is, in our discussions on the local comprehensive plan, we talk a lot about the cluster plans, and I find myself in favor of those more, reducing the amount of asphalt and all the requirements that go along with that, I think would make for a nice area. So that's just a couple comments in general at this point.
anybody else?
I like the cluster plan too, so it's always an improvement, or usually an improvement. More open space.
Yeah.
More open space, sure.
And
The houses are farther away from noise up in the highway. A lot of open space will be protected there. No disturbance really will be up there.
yeah, so when we get to talk to the engineer, we can
Yeah.
dig a little deeper.
When's the next time this comes up, Brian? Do we have it scheduled?
We'd like to schedule a motion for the board next week. Discussion, decision.
So we'll be right on this next week then. Any other public comments?
Just
one thing, and not to make light of it, but what do we do about the 2 families of foxes that live there?
Where do they live? They live right on the property. They're not,
We seem to be coexisting with a lot of turkeys on Main Street this year, so I think we could probably deal with that.
I'm pretty sure Ambleside,
It's right in there, it is,
yes.
yeah.
You know, so it doesn't show all that. But I don't think you're anywhere near this. It's the,
We are,
you are? You're down by,
right on that corner, yeah.
There's Wallenhop.
there's even, yeah, okay. I'll look at 106
The
Ambleside.
tires are right next door to us, and that's
Okay.
shown there.
You're 106, you said, right?
By the way, they're no longer there.
No.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Okay, that's it for that. We'll
Okay.
bring it up again next week.
Thank you, yeah.
Very small agenda, is this is it?
Oh, no, baby, keep
Quality,
going,
not quantity.
keep going, no.
Okay, the next thing is the recommendations for articles for town meeting.
Yeah.
No, that's what it's just saying, it's the last plan, this is just another recommendations. We want to determine if it's, a modification is necessary for McDougal's. Excuse me, folks, please leave quietly, we're having a meeting here.
We still have to do the zoning articles.
Recommendation for zoning articles for the April town meeting. So, oh yeah, we got a lot of them. In accordance with Section 5, Chapter 40A, Massachusetts General Law of the Falmouth zoning bylaw, the Falmouth Planning Board shall, what?
You already had your hearing,
Okay.
so you don't have to read the hearing notice.
Okay, we didn't notice, okay. Article, to see if the town will vote to amend the official zoning map of the town of Falmouth so as to change the existing agricultural AA zone by rezoning from agricultural AA to public use, the land on 0 Thomas Landers Road in Falmouth, Assessors Map 15, Section 4, Parcel 16, Lot 4, located south of Thomas Landers Road, containing 8.6 acres more or less, or to take any other action on this matter on the request of the Board of Selectmen. We're going to just do these one by one?
Well, have some discussion on that one?
Yeah. Oh, I think the public's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have a couple of questions. I looked in the zoning under public use, but I saw the descriptions of what was there, but I didn't see anything about the setback requirements. Are there any in public use?
They would be under section 67, in that whole area for setbacks. They're the same in public use zones as they would be in ag zone.
Okay. And we had another concern. Could I
Go ahead.
have a question from
Fire
Mr.
away.
Perry? Another concern, Mr. Hanley had a question last week about this, that his property was no longer going to be able to have irrigation wells. Is that sound,
That was the statement that was made.
is that, do you have any knowledge about that?
I have no knowledge, direct knowledge. I know it's known as a class 3 or case 3 area. The groundwater was condemned back in the early 80s as part of the sewage treatment plant. And everyone has attached to their deeds, in this case, or class 3 areas, a prohibition on a drinking water well. And you have to be tied into the town's water system.
That's already in place, you're saying?
I think that went in back in the early 80s or mid 80s. So there might be a prohibition on a potable well. I have no knowledge with regards to irrigation.
Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, I had the same question, because, and Mr. Hanley, I see is here tonight, there's definitely a difference between a well for potable water and a well for agricultural use. And I'm just wondering how the town could rezone a parcel that would change the abutter's ability to have a well.
It's already in place, Ralph. That whole, the class or case 3 area was laid out in the 80s. The zoning designation has no bearing on that. Whether it's zoned, industrial, whatever, that class 3 groundwater designation was put in place back in the 80s. So this zoning article, or any zoning article in this area, whether it was the Tech Park or the light industrial C, or the light industrial A across the street, all that happened in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, has no bearing on it. Groundwater was condemned because of the treatment plant back in the 80s.
And the groundwater infiltration carried up this far, right? Even though this parcel of land
The case,
was not,
the case 3 area encompasses that entire area.
okay.
And it ran across the street, 28A, down to West Falmouth.
So then all of the residents in those areas are on town water?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What, who does that? Is that a Board of Health designation
I don't know the
or
exact.
state? What, who?
I wasn't here for that designation. My understanding is a state designation.
It sounds like a state, like a Title V or Zone 2.
Part of your discharge permit.
I recall when my neighborhood in Hatchville was designated to have an influx of the plume, that we had town water put in, and most of us had wells, and that we were given the choice of keeping the well or having it taken out, and if you chose to keep it, it couldn't be tied into anything that was tied in with the town water, and it had to be labeled as non-potable. And those were the only conditions that we were given at that time, and I'm not sure if the same thing applies in this case or not, but I know there are people who still have wells in the neighborhood that use them for watering lawns and gardens and things like that.
Okay, anyone from the public? Oh, the meeting's closed, sorry. We've already closed it last week.
Mrs. Kirkwood said she guaranteed me to answer my questions this week.
We did say we would be coming back to this.
We did. What was your question?
We have to take a vote to reopen it for discussion? or-
Yeah. If you recall the question that was put forward at the
I don't
hearing,
remember the question now, so I
You
can't,
may want to
I
ask.
can't comment on it because I can't remember it.
You may want to ask them.
Okay,
Well, I can remember the
You just want to
question.
ask them, the commenter, to repeat the question for you, so the board can discuss it. That's how it works.
Doug, do you remember what it was?
I remember he wanted to discuss the consideration of rezoning his land. It was sort of off the cuff, and I don't think we were really ready to discuss it, but we said we'd give it some consideration and give our thoughts, even though it's not really in order.
Well, it's not proposed by anybody.
It's not proposed, it was just a question for discussion, and it's a discussion for decision for the chairman, if you want to open up to these general questions from the public that aren't related to our agenda.
No, I don't think so.
Excuse me, Commissioner, approach the mic. I'm right here in the room and you're asking questions I can easily answer.
Excuse me, I think we're all set. We,
So a notified abutter is not allowed to ask questions of the planning board
This-
for an issue that directly affects his property. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying this meeting was closed last week.
And,
Could you just sort it out?
okay.
At the hearing, there were 2 questions that were asked by Mr. Hamlin. I think it'd be a good idea if you could just repeat the 2 questions for the board. One was, how does this zoning designation affect my property rights? And then the second question was whether or not, and it was somewhat off topic, was a quick discussion or impression prima facie of the board to redesignate his property for some light industrial classification. Those are the 2 questions from the hearing that the board can now discuss. So the first question was, All right so far? Was how does this zoning designation for this parcel affect my property rights? And the board discussed it a little bit, you know, that the setbacks are the same, the property rights that inure to Mr. Hanley and an agricultural AA district, are they affected by the zoning redesignation next door? Is the discussion that he asked the board to have. And my understanding from the board's discussion or your review of the bylaws that you couldn't find any. Is that, so that, I guess that's a fair comment
Yeah.
to relate to the commenter, Mr. Hammond. The second question, I think, was that would the board consider prima facie, somewhat off topic, a redesignation of his property to some sort of light industrial, I think it was A, designation, without binding either party, a real quick discussion whether or not that made sense. And if you look at the zoning map, it probably does. At least rises to the level of a conversation sometime in the future, given the fact that most of the surrounding land uses, and most of the surrounding zoning, are not agricultural AA. So it's probably a conversation you need to have with Mr. Hanley, if not here, to an in-depth, because it is off topic. Certainly pretty soon in the future, because most of the land there is either light industrial C, or light industrial B, or whatever.
That discussion may happen, I mean, if he applies and go through the process and the notification to abutters and hearing and go through that whole process, we could certainly talk, go through it.
That's all he's...
Right, but that's the way to do it, not come to this meeting and try to get yours rezoned as part of a tale of something else. It's not on the agenda.
I think there's a misunderstanding.
Why don't you let him just...
Okay,
I sent my...
would you step to the mic? We don't want to have a misunderstanding. And believe me, just keep it to this point.
Matthew Hanley, 710 Thomas B. Landers Road. I had two questions last week. First question was, how would this zoning affect my abutting property? Now, I expected some kind of in-depth discussion last week during the public forum, which I was notified to come here to have my questions answered. I expected an in-depth discussion about why public use is beneficial to this property. Under agricultural AA, municipal uses are already allowed. And there was correspondence, I know, sent to the planning board that was supposed to be read at this meeting from other people, other staff from the town hall stating that this should be, you know, tabled indefinitely because agricultural AA already meets the town's needs for municipal uses. My family is very concerned that under public use, our rights as abutters would be diminished, which would be detrimental to our family and our property. Right now, the town has to give us a 100-foot buffer, which greatly depreciates the allowed piece of land. So there's 8.86 acres that's the town wants to develop for infiltration beds. Right now, they can only use 4 acres of that. And because the town found Native American artifacts on part of the parcel, they can only use 2 acres.
Okay, we're
So-
getting off your question here.
No,
into a
it's
whole
not off
different-
topic. I'm saying,
What's
will
your other
we still
point?
be able to have
Your
a
other point?
100-foot buffer?
You said you had 2?
Yes. So my first question was, will we still have the same rights as abutters? Right now, we have a 100-foot buffer that has to be allowed between our property and the infiltration beds. Will that still be true?
I don't know if it's our job to tell you what your property rights are. Good,
Well, public use, the change in zoning would
Okay,
change
well-
the rights.
Okay, so...
Thank you.
So the question should be, as I asked last week, could you please give us that section of the bylaw that requires the 100-foot buffer?
I shouldn't have to be a zoning
I just-
expert
I just-
to speak to the planning
Okay.
board. That's why we come and ask questions.
Then tell you what, here's what we'll do. I don't know of any.
neither do I.
So that's why I said my sense is they're the same. And I think the question came, and I'm going to give you my email address, let's discuss, find it, let's discuss it.
Did you
I
receive
tried
the
to reach
email
out
that I
and
sent
have
to
that
you?
discussion, but Mr.
Handley.
I'm sorry.
Hanley.
asked two questions at the meeting, at the hearing. The board's trying to address it. But again, it's not a back and forth between the board and a property owner. The question came up, does this impact my property rights under agriculture AA zoning? And my response to the board and the board's response to you was, we're not aware of it. I think that speaks for itself and stands on its own merits. Now, the second question came, would the board have a prima facie discussion with regards to a redesignation of your property because of the impact of the Class 3 area? Prima facie board, I think Mr. Hanley, just like your first impressions, whether or not that might be something for discussion and is tenable. I think that's all you can do tonight.
What I recall from the first question was the question about the groundwater and the fact that he couldn't use wells to irrigate for farming, and what the situation with that was. And we found out tonight what that situation is. With the other question, I felt that that wasn't part of this article to determine rezoning another parcel, but certainly if he wanted to bring an article before a town meeting, that would be probably a good thing to do. I could see where rezoning that piece of land to light industrial, industrial A or whatever industrial zoning you would like, I think that would be a good move. And that's what I got out of those questions that you had last week.
Well, I wish we had this discussion last week instead of
Okay,
being-
that's enough.
being cut off. you know.
That's enough. We're all set. We have addressed, I just want to say, this is an area where we have talked about rezoning. In fact, we have created industrial zone in this area, and you should be quite aware that we'd love to have more industrial zoning. So, if you have a plan on it, put your plans together and bring them forward. But
Thank you very much,
I I think you were the one that was opposing us the last time we were trying to rezone in this area.
No, I was opposed to light industry C.
Okay.
And I'm still opposed to light industry C.
Well, that might be what we need there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important for Mr. Hanley and the public to remember that last week was a hearing. It's not designated as a discussion or banter between the applicant or the public and the board. A hearing means that we hear, and that's all we do. We don't discuss at hearings. And that's very important for you and everybody, and we actually are guilty sometimes about forgetting that. And so last week wasn't the appropriate forum for us to discuss what you want the answers. We listened to your questions, but we can't discuss them at a hearing. So that's very important for you to understand. Last week we're not trying to duck anything that you brought before us, because we're not discussing issues at a hearing.
And I'd like to add that at a hearing, we're gathering information so that if we have questions, we can ask our staff or do our own research as well. Because
Well, at this time,
We're all set. I want to stop you right, cut you off where we shouldn't have started this. We listened to your two questions, that was it. So you're all done right now.
Okay, I will still have a right to speak at the town meeting, though, since I'm enough butter.
You have all the
right,
rights,
Thank you,
yes.
I'll address it then.
Yes, further discussion.
Yeah, just more discussion on that question that he had was that we had already designated that area, what we felt would be good for light industrial C and maybe good for other options, but certainly that's one that fits out there as we previously discussed. So just wanted to put that in there.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we recommend this article for approval for the town meeting.
Is that as written, or how do we say that? As written?
As printed.
It's printed.
As printed. Okay. I'll second.
I have one more question. Is this a cutoff time now for these articles? is this a cutoff time? Are we getting to crunch time here with these?
Yes. Which is why we're meeting tonight.
Right. Okay.
All set? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
For the-
Opposed? Unanimous. Article, to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 240 of the zoning Code of Falmouth by deleting the words "professional" where it appears in Section 240, 28E, or take any other action at this time.
Okay.
I have some comments. I did a search. I think it appears 8 different times as professional, and I think there may be a point to it, but I think we need to look at, this is something I would think when we do the review of our zoning bylaw, we're cleaning up language, that this would be more appropriately done at that time, looking at all of them.
I'm
The-
sorry.
What, the word "professional," he wants to delete it. The solution may be to actually define it. Because it's used 8 other times in eight other bylaws. Professional office space.
To the board, I mean, you know,
I'm just bringing that up. That was, I did, anybody else? Ralph?
Yeah, I think this is a perfect time to add a definition to our Section 240. And I would recommend that, that we vote to have our staff develop a definition for professional, and that we submit it to town meeting as an amendment to this article.
No? Brian shaking his head no?
I'm sorry?
outside the scope.
We can't do that?
I think it's outside the scope, and we can do it, but we'd have to somehow make sure it gets inside the scope of the article. That's the only issue I foresee.
Well, it
there.
says, or to take any other, it says, or to do or take any other action on this matter,
Well,
and I would think that,
I understand, Ron.
that would be,
That's standard
what would be-
language, so you could amend it. But to add a definition, I'm just telling you, my concern there is to whether we could stay inside the scope of the article. I mean, we'll write a definition, but just, you know, it might get ruled out of the scope. That's all.
You mean the Attorney General may say that it's outside the scope of the...
Moderator or somebody, yeah.
So our choices basically are to agree to this or to recommend indefinite postponement and then proceed with a definition at a later time. Is that what you're saying?
You could, if that's a possibility, or you could look at some, you said there are 8 others, well, no, it might be ruled outside the scope too. My sense is, yeah, to add an actual definition, the hearing was to delete a word, not add a definition, so my sense is you're outside the scope.
Okay.
Doug, sure, sorry.
So, I think, at first I thought that this was going to not be necessary, and I look in the dictionary, and there are a few different definitions and a few different interpretations of the word professional. I think that's where the confusion comes in. If we can try to define it, but there'll always be another interpretation of a definition. So I at first didn't agree with it, but now after thinking more on it, I do agree that I think it would make sense to remove it. It's ambiguous.
And just for the background of the board, back in the early 90s, or late 80s, I think we tried that. We tried to bring a definition in, and it turned out to be problematic, and town meeting voted it down. Just for your background.
Okay.
I have a flashback.
I have a question for Mr. Glenn.
Can we ask?
For clarification, you ask questions.
You stated last week that when it comes to the state defining the word professional, is there, or the zoning board, what they used as a definition for professional, is that a definition from the state? Does the state have a definition of professional?
So thank you for asking me. Paul Glenn, I'm the applicant here tonight. I think that was a different attorney that talked about definitions, how it was defined and how the Board of Appeals had talked to it before. I was the one that said there were 3 lawyers that were sitting together, and we all had a different opinion about, kind of agreeing with Mr. Brown said, we all had a different opinion about what the word professional meant.
And
Because I'm just wondering if different zoning boards, as personnel changes on a board, if they change the definition within the board, how they would...
So my knowledge of it is, there's a court case that has a very restrictive definition of it. I haven't read it for a while, but this was very intense a while ago there. And it has the court case has a very restrictive definition of it, probably more than what the Board of Appeals has allowed before, according to another attorney that was here. And there's another opinion that just said, how does the Board of Appeals, how does the town have any authority to regulate land based upon the type of degree somebody has? And I think that's my point, and my point is that it just, there is always going to be a different definition of what it is. No matter what you do, there's a different definition of what it is. And the word professional, we'd all like everything to be perfect. You know, let's not do anything till everything's perfect. But I think all those other places.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm going beyond the question.
I'm happy to move this along. I mean, we can address the other 8 at another time. We don't have to do it here. I didn't mean to force it on you or anything, so I just wanted to have that
I
discussion.
recall what Mr. Oppenheim's opinion and explanation actually was not an opinion, but in relating what happened in his case, turns out the definition was a professional is a person who holds an advanced degree and a license to practice it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I come around to it's either has to be deleted or defined. That's kind of where I come down on it.
Ken, sorry?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That definition that we heard it could mean is not what this should have been made for. I mean, somebody that doesn't have an advanced degree shouldn't be able to not rent their space. So I agree, like, we can't define it, so I also agree that we should recommend just deleting it.
Recommend what?
Deleting it, as the article says, the word professional.
Article is printed. Do I hear it? Ralph?
Yeah, I have to disagree with Ken on that one. I'm worried about a precedent being set here, even though might be minor in some cases. I haven't read all of the other 7 places in which it's mentioned. I think if we delete it here, you're setting a precedent that people could argue in the future as to whether or not they want it deleted or defined in the other sections of the bylaw. So I think that we need to wait until we define it and then proceed. That's the way I would be. I have to agree with Bob, although he said either define it or delete it. I'm in favor of defining it and leaving it in there until the next town meeting.
The only thing, I think that its use is different in each article. I mean, each article is different. I mean, the zoning, I believe this is as it applies to general residential. And some of the other uses, it's in business, it's in a lot of different sections. So the importance of the word changes. I have no problem with deleting it, this and studying it and working on all the others, but I'll go, I will,
Well, I think since the bylaws are under scrutiny now for rewrites and changes and things like that, I would be more in favor of holding on this myself.
Ken?
The biggest problem will be creating the definition, because as you said, each place it represents something different. So what we might think would be professional in this won't necessarily play in those other areas. So in this particular article, the reason why I said I would agree with deleting the word professional, this is solely for residential properties that will switch to office space. So it doesn't necessarily work like the other professionals would be. It's solely residential properties that are in certain areas that were converted to office space before for doctors or lawyers or dentists or whatever. And now they just want to be able to rent them to other professionals, not doctors or lawyers or dentists. So deleting it there, I don't believe is going to create a precedence in the other areas, because this is specifically for those residentials that were, and it still has to go through a special permit or through the Board of Appeals to get approved. This is just allowing them to be able to give approval without the professional screening.
What do you think about that, Ralph? You still hold up your same position?
I think it's a bucket of worms.
I know, yeah.
That's what I think.
I'm going to make a motion.
I don't know
Go ahead.
how to
I'll make
better
a
address
motion
it.
that we approve this article as printed.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, I would ask everybody here tonight on the board to consider, would you then, if it is defined in the future, would you consider reinstating it in this article, in this portion of the bylaw? It was put in there for a reason. And I think it would be better for us to look at the different applications of the word professional in the bylaw, if there's 7 or 8 of them, to look at them and to see whether or not how applicable they are to a general definition.
Jeez, it is a bucket of worms, because I don't like the way it's professionals being applied now, but then I don't feel I have enough information about the other bylaws to question whether it would have any ramifications on those that may have unintended consequences. So I said before, I think I would rather personally wait on something like this.
So, yes, go ahead, Ken, sorry.
When I made that recommendation here, if you read the section E, it says professional offices. So the only thing we're doing now is we're saying offices.
Right.
It's still going to be offices. It's not going to be commercial, McDonald's, restaurants, or anything. We're just talking about offices here, and I understand why the petitioner brought this article forward. So it's, like I said, it's just offices. You remove professional, and it starts with offices, but not to include medical clinics. And that's how that article would go.
So, Brian, simple majority? Okay, you guys ready? Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Showdown.
Ayes have it.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we'll try to address the concerns of the other members.
Okay. Thank you.
this is definitely going to be for our consultant to deal with any other 7 locations, or just try, at least try to. Sounds like we tried to do this before and it didn't work, so. Okay. To see if the town will vote to amend the zoning bylaw by adding the words Marine District bylaw in the Marine District bylaw, which will read, E, the Board of Appeals may waive the floor area limitations for non-marine related uses in 240-44B, C, and D, and 240-45A and D for the lots that as January 1st, 2015, for those lots as of January 1st, 2015, do not border on a body of water. To do or take any other action on this matter on the request of Robert H. Ament and others.
I tend to agree with this. I think to put a restriction on what you can do with your floor space in this district is proving it to be detrimental to some businesses. So I would tend to agree that we should give some relief to those businesses that would like to rent out more space as long as they conform with the other aspects of the district.
Anybody? Ralph, sorry?
Yeah, I agree. I would move that the planning board endorse this article as printed.
I'll second.
I agree.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay. Article, to see if the town will vote to amend the official zoning map of the town of Falmouth so as to extend the Business 1 district by rezoning from B3 to B1. The land, 15,290 square feet plus or minus, known as 65 Town Hall Square, including 39 and 43 Glenwood Avenue, which land being assessor's parcel 47A08007000 is more particularly bounded and described as follows: easterly by Glenwood Avenue 120 feet, southerly by land now or formerly of Eric Zeter and Linda Amaral Zeter 118 feet, and westerly by the town of Falmouth, known as Town Hall Square, 120 feet, and northerly by land now or formerly of the Clark Trust of 130 feet. To do or take any other action on this matter on the request of Glenwood Place Nominee Trust, owner of record. Discussion? Yes.
So, as I pointed out at the last meeting, without a lot line breaking up the back half of this to the front half, I just can't agree with the B1 going over to Glenwood Ave. I just don't think it makes sense, and I envision some potential buyer just making a giant business zone building there I don't think would belong. So. That might not be
Anybody
the
else?
intent.
Yeah, I tend to have the same sense that Doug has about that. Without that line through the property, I could see where if it's just one lot, that somebody could go in, tear down something and put in something that wouldn't really fit in on the Glenwood side.
I had concern, I guess, Brian, I'd ask you to comment. I think this is leaving it, I remember all the maps, this is leaving one parcel by itself that is be standalone B3 zoning,
I believe that's correct.
okay? I don't think that's a good thing to do, to have it a little patch of, I believe it's a residential property that's zoned B3 now. And it was zoned as the whole block area was B3, and now just that one lot, if we were to do this.
Essentially a severance type of zone, but it's not unprecedented.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear, if there was something else. Yes, Ken?
I want to maybe get a clarification from the applicant. Do you guys remember if it had to divide the lot, was that a requirement? Was that why it needed to be B1? Because the lot can't be split as if it's B3? Is that,
It's to get out of the setback.
There are no lot requirements or no setback requirements in a B1 zone, whereas there's all the setback requirements and I think
and
the nearest residential zone lot area requirement for a B3 district.
so if it's B3, he can't divide the land? Correct. That, so, that's what I'm just saying, so that's why he can't divide it, because it's B3. So it can't be, you know, split up into two properties.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes, Ralph?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understand it too. Currently, it's one lot.
B3.
B3.
Right. And if we go to B1, it can then be divided, is that correct?
Into the commercial section and then the residential housing.
Well, B1 allows you to, no setbacks, build right up to the property line, and it doesn't have a parking requirement either. It's quite a different zoning. It's meant for downtown Main Street locations, close to public parking.
I mean, I understand what the applicant's trying to do, and that was divide the land.
The applicant, as I remember, this would allow the separation of the office building from the two residential houses, right? This would allow that.
Intent.
And as I recall, Ms. Valley-Ailes commented that having 3 buildings on one lot was excessive, which is the current situation.
That's already there.
Can somebody tell me what is the issue of separating the office building from the residential houses?
And that's what I got a clarification from Brian is in B3, you can't separate the lot because of the setbacks. It's B3, so he can't separate them. B1 will reduce the setbacks and allow the land to be divided.
It also allows for much greater density in the development.
So Ken, you're saying that you would be opposed to this zoning change?
No, I'm not. I am.
favor?
I'm actually in favor and was going to make a motion for this to be approved as printed.
Okay.
Because if I'm not mistaken, even though it's more dense, would allow more dense, it all has to go before the zoning board because of all the proximity and would need special permits anyway, if they ever did anything else on the property. So I do not believe the B1 is going to be detrimental to the town or more densely than it already is.
Well,
It just seems logical to me to separate the office building from the residential.
So I say right now, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this article as printed.
one more question for Mr. Curry.
Go ahead.
So is Ken correct in assuming that I'm mistaken about the interpretation of the possible build-out of that whole property as a one huge new building, 90% lot coverage?
You could tear down those buildings and have one more building that's 90% lot coverage or a lot.
Without any kind of special permit or zoning board?
It depends on the use and my sense is because of the size, well, there's no lot size requirement. There might be some requirements for special permits given the use that would go in.
It might be, but not. It's hard to say.
There are some business uses allowed as a matter of right. And once you demo everything, you go back to blank tablet, according to Frank. So there's some uses allowed as a matter of right, and some that would require a special permit. But it would also cure, I guess what the board knows, also cure right now the buildings that are within setback areas It would also cure those defects if someone just wanted to improve the existing properties. You wouldn't have to go back to the Board of Appeals for a non-conformity with regards to setbacks. So it's an incentive for investment if you go back to the B1, along with being able to separate out the uses or divide the properties if you want to convey out the residences on Glenwood side and have a business on the...
I think they could be conveyed as condominiums, and that could be accomplished without,
Okay.
you know, I mean, there's many properties that have, you know, separate ownership as condos, and, you know, they're still all one parcel because of the zoning issues. Anybody else? So, are you going to make a motion, Ken?
I made the motion.
You made it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? You're,
You know, I would like to vote for this because I understand and agree with the intent. I just wish I got a little more assurance that there wasn't going to be some giant structure by some new owner.
It could be sold, you could tear down the buildings, there could be a new structure. So I can't give you that.
it could be right up to the property lines and 35 feet high.
Well, they would have to have parking space though, wouldn't they?
Not with B1.
B1 does not require parking.
See, there's a part of me that, you know, I understand the intent too, and then this, I keep feeling I've got to make this decision, and this is going to fly based on my vote, but it's for the town to discuss, so I tend to like to see things get haggled out on town meeting floor as well.
Okay.
So we have a
Motion?
motion and a second. Did I hear a second?
Yeah,
by
yeah,
Bob.
it's been
Bob?
seconded. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm the only holdout,
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm opposed as well,
Okay.
but it's a majority, it passes.
Okay, so we'll let town meeting decide.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Town meeting can work it out.
Okay.
Or it could pass on the blanket.
Or it could pass on a blanket. Okay.
You want me to read
All
the
right,
last one?
no, yeah, if you'd like, but this is,
Let me
Go ahead,
just read
go
it.
ahead,
Okay.
yep.
Article to see if the town will vote to amend the official zoning map of the town of Falmouth by rezoning the Marine District to Business 2 District, the land at 56 Scranton Ave, Falmouth, Massachusetts, which land, .448 acres, located on the southeasterly corner of the intersection of Scranton Avenue and Robbins Road, is lot 33 Land Court Plan 7639-4, being assessed as parcel 47B090058-033, or take any other action on this matter on behalf of the Falmouth Heights Marina. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that this get voted, that, oh gee, I lost the, that,
Indefinite.
indefinite, that we move, I move the indefinite postponement based on the fact that we agreed to the other article that the petitioner has filed.
Second.
Any discussion?
Nope, it's a second choice, so. It's a backup plan.
Yeah.
okay, no
Okay.
further discussion? Where the motion is for indefinite postponement. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Okay.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Just a second, just a second. Yes, go ahead.
It might be useful to have a recommendation in case the first article is defeated by town meeting, to at least have your board have a discussion on that second article.
Well, we just did.
Okay? But it was,
We had it last week, too.
Yeah, we had it last week too. And
the question may come back to the town meeting floor.
it can, and somebody could put a positive on it and bring it forward if they want to. And that goes along with what we discussed tonight as well. So we took That was part of the thought process. Okay,
Procedural question, I understand the question. If the previous article fails, there's no official planning board recommendation other than indefinite postponement for the mapping line. Does the board want to have an explanation that states that, indefinite postponement if Article 3 passes, but you reserve the right to bring forward a positive motion should Article 3 fail?
That sounds like a smart idea.
I don't.
I don't. That's
No.
why I kind of
Yeah.
dodged the issue and,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to
Make
go
sure the
there.
board understands, that's all.
That way I took that into consideration and
Okay.
and voted accordingly.
So noted.
Now that I'm exposed. Okay. What's next here?
Determine the modification.
Boat racks.
McDougal.
To discuss, okay. Okay, back on this page.
Down the bottom.
Yep. To
McDougal's.
determine if a modification is necessary for McDougal's, the site plan for the addition of additional boat racks. And
This is a letter in your correspondence.
yes. We have a rather lengthy letter here with,
I don't think that's it. That's,
it's Marine Division
yeah,
bylaw, long letter.
should be in your
Other-
folder.
Okay, Bob, are you here to discuss this? Could you-
Thank you very much, Bob Ament, attorney, as you know. I represent McDougal's Cape Cod Marine Service, Inc. McDougal's has operated for over 100 years. And it's really a jewel in Falmouth. I'm told it's one of the most prestigious marinas in the Northeast. And it was almost totally renovated over the last decade, starting with permits granted in 2004. 13 of 14 old buildings on the property were removed and replaced by modern facilities. A large boat storage building along Grand Avenue and Falmouth Heights Road. And the red building you've all seen, a metal building that includes service areas and offices and the like, and a customer service area over there. Well, if you've been to the site, you know it's really appears pristine. It's just cared for tremendously. In the winter, it's filled with stored boats. You know, marine storage, where boat storage is a permitted use of a marina, of course. And I just thought you'd be interested in seeing these photos. Well, what McDougal's wants to do to expand its capacity and to better serve its clients and have more of them, and to have more work on boats that need to be serviced, is to install several rack systems. So you can see boats are stored all over the place on the property. Those are all taken out of the water, both the boats at the berths there and boats from other locations, and stored on site. What they'd like to do is have racks similar to what's at Pier 37 across the harbor, and I haven't gone and looked, but I gather there are racks also at Fiddler's Cove. And to install some racks here, here, and here. And there would also be racks along the bulkhead right here, but they're not shown on this plan because those are to be portable two-level racks. And if they're portable and two-level, they aren't structures. They, in fact, would be moved seasonally to somewhere in the parking area so that they would have boats stored on them, like in that picture. Because this space is needed in the winter for very large boats right next to the water, as you can see in the photographs. So there would be racks here, but they aren't structures. Now, because again, they don't require a fixed position on the ground, that's the definition of structure, and the building commissioner has already agreed that that's not a structure, wouldn't need a special permit. If the rest of these racks here, in these locations, were two tiers. They would not need a special permit, they wouldn't be structures, we wouldn't be here. And we store boats all over the place on stanchions and in cradles. We're just talking about storing them on a different way. That's either 2-tier or 3-tier. So we have filed, because these are structures, they won't be moved. They have permanent locations. They're affixed to the ground to make them sturdy since they're higher. We filed for a special permit modification with the Board of Appeals, and we will have a public hearing on those structures. The question arises whether site plan review is required with the planning board. Now, of course, site plan review was done back in 2004 and 2007, the two major permits that approved the renovation of the boatyard. And as most of your site plan review decisions, if not all of them, say, any modification of plan requires coming back to the planning board to determine if a modification of the site plan review is required. So my letter to the board asked that question. If a site plan review is required, a modification, we'll submit a site plan review and we'll come back before you for that published hearing. But I think there is a question because site plan review is required when you're installing, creating more than 1,000 square feet of floor space, which isn't happening here, or whether 5 or more parking spaces are required by the activity. Now, we already have over 160 parking spaces on this site. And the requirement for parking for a marina is based on the boat capacity. It says 1 space per berth. And I'll tell you that there are 86 berths in the water. It then says 1 space per boat capacity in parentheses. So the question is, well, what does that mean if we're adding racks that have boats on them that can be taken off and put in the water? Is that really like a berth? Well, let's assume it is. The capacity of all of the boat racks, including the 2-tiered one that isn't a structure, would be 60 maximum. So you add 60 to 86 berths in the water, and even if you counted each of those as needing a parking space, that would be 146. So even if we put these racks here and that takes away a few parking spaces, the number of existing spaces that are shown on the plan is 150. We already have more parking than we need. In fact, McDougall's has been keeping last summer in anticipation of this. They know how much parking they've had. I think the greatest parking they've needed, even on 4th of July weekend in their roadways, is around 57% of the actual parking that they have. Anyway, we comply with the bylaw without adding any parking spaces. The racks are going on existing pavement, so the Conservation Commission has just today sent a referral to the Board of Appeals saying it's administrative approval. You don't need a hearing for this. You're not changing the pavement. So we're not changing the patterns of activity on the site, and I think it's up to the to the planning board to determine. It is because it's what your past 2007 decision says, whether this requires coming back to the planning board. I've discussed this with the building commissioner, and he says it's up to the planning board. That's really about it. If you have questions, obviously, I'll try to answer them.
I have a question. Did you say that there is a special permit modification? I mean, you're asking to waive the hearing for a special permit modification, or just the site plan?
Just site
So
plan.
So the neighbors will be notified for the special permit?
Correct.
And they'll all get to weigh in, and so that's really not doing much. Okay, I wanted to make sure, because I know it's a sensitive area, the neighbors would definitely would not want to have it.
Yeah, the question is really, are we changing anything on the site plan review?
This is specific to the site plan, not the special permit.
all I'm asking you
Okay,
about.
I'm clear, thank you.
In fact, I've already filed the special permit application with the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
That's already been filed.
Beautiful. Got anything?
Yeah, I just have an issue with things being brought to us without any previous opportunity to look at what's being presented to us. And I would not want to, I would like the applicant to come back to us with more detail than just this to approve the site plan issues on this proposal.
Yes, yes, Bob?
Well, in response to Mr. Herbst, I just say that, of course, our letter request included a copy of the special permit application and a copy of the plan. So basically, if we were telling you what we're proposing, I think it's fairly clear. If the board needs to hear all the detail and see everything, then it seems like you're saying you'd like to come back for site plan review, or maybe you're just saying you want to know more about it. But I mean, we've tried to provide information about what we're proposing.
I know it's just the fact that I haven't had a chance to think about it or review it, that's all.
I have another question. Would you, this would be change, would this be changing the nature of it? Now, these would be where boats would be dry sailed or dry loaded all summer long off these racks? Or this
Yes,
is okay,
yes,
so this
that's
would be
excellent
increasing the capacity. This would be additional berth space.
That's why I felt it was reasonable to calculate the worst-case parking requirements and make sure we already had enough parking, and we didn't have to change any of the details on the plan that are the things that the planning board would look at. So you're asking a use question, and that's what the Board of Appeals...
I understand. I just asked for my own clarification.
Yeah.
Jim, I have a question for Mr. Allen. I have to ask him.
Go ahead.
Mr. Allen, my grandparents are a 300-foot abutter, less than 300-foot abutter from this property, so I want to ask, is it okay if I stay, or would you want me to abstain?
No, first of all, I don't think this is a public hearing, and I don't have any objection to it. Thank you.
Bob?
I'm familiar with marinas and rack storage and all that, and I really don't see where it would be necessary for us to have a site plan review on something of this nature. It's just a part of the business now. It's just how things are done. So it's within the property. They're not adding anything to the property. There's, I mean, you're looking at a picture with all these boats, and there's more than enough parking. If you go to the other places that have racks, they're not considered berths, and that you have to have the capacity for each berth. So the number of parking spaces, I don't think is an issue for me.
Doug?
How far are they back from the road?
It's a good and reasonable question, and
Looks like
back
the
behind the front of
setbacks of the building, yeah.
both of those. The
But those
scale
are-
on this plan is 1 inch equals 40. They're back about 40 feet.
Is that the setback in that area? I know
I'm
those
sorry.
buildings, is that the correct setback in that area? I know those buildings probably were pre-existing before the...
Well, this building
Setback
is
requirements.
this is the one building that remained, the sail loft,
Yeah.
and it's non-conforming. And this building, I think, was allowed to be non-conforming as well.
So the 40 feet may or may not be conforming, it's just, do you know whether or not they meet the setbacks in that area? The boat racks?
The boat racks will.
They
The
will?
boat racks will.
Okay.
Not the existing buildings.
Right.
The boat racks will,
That
though.
was-
And as you probably know, is by requirement of the Board of Appeals, evergreen trees all the way along the front.
I'm fine with letting the zoning board handle it. I think the
Yeah.
site plan, but we'll weigh in on it. Everyone, any further discussion?
You need a motion?
Yes.
I move that we ask the applicant to return with, as required by the site plan review, because they're presenting a modification to the previous site plan.
I'll second for the sake of a vote.
We have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
I guess I'll
He
support
said-
Ralph's motion.
Yeah, so will I. So that's 3-4.
I'm sorry, could we, I'd like
Yes.
to see a show of hands, please?
In favor?
In favor. So we're calling them to come in for a site plan.
3-2.
3-2. Sorry to shortcut it, Ralph, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you missed that.
Thanks a lot, so we'll see you with the,
See you
we'll
soon.
submit the application, be back for you.
Okay.
Okay, now the agenda gets kind of fluky here on the next page. The dates.
We put those little bad boys in there to make sure you're reading them. The date should be the 24th.
Okay,
Good to go.
well, we'll still have, we always ask for future agenda items. Does anyone have anything they'd like?
Well, at the last meeting, we were told that some of the items that we have asked for will be forthcoming fairly soon, so I'm satisfied with that.
And I have a question for all the board members, and probably need Brian's advice on it, too. We've got an opinion, on the EDIC, we've got an opinion that we do not need to change the zoning for the solar application that we're considering for the landfill. However, because it's public use. However, I wanted to make sure that we do have, is there some way that we can still have notification of butters and a public discussion and an airing of it? I mean, that, without,
So as a future agenda item, you want to have a discussion about how to notice folks for a public use zone for a public project?
well, my question is particular to the landfill, and that making sure, I don't want to make the same mistakes that we assumed with the public use, we could just go ahead and put up wind turbines. I don't want to take the same stance for the solar application. I think all that really needed to be done,
Eh,
what?
You're asking future agenda items, you can't
No,
discuss
no, but
it.
this is what, no, this is your future agenda item, is a public discussion. You cut me up before, on it.
Okay, so at some future time,
That's, I didn't finish my point.
you would like to make sure there's some sort of disclosure with regards to what our intended reuse of the landfill.
And a public discussion.
Sure, disclosure, discussion.
Right, because that's what, the last time people felt they were closed out from that, and I just don't want to repeat the same mistake.
Okay.
And I don't know the proper way to do it, so that's,
Well, usually the selectmen hold a hearing because back in the 90s, they put something in there about the reuse of town-owned property requires a hearing. And I think that's the legal forum, but if the planning board wants to hold a forum, that's fine. You may want to do it at a joint meeting or...
do the selectmen, do they send notice to abutters? Do they go through that whole process that we do?
When you notice a butters, that's an administrative, that's an adjudicatory hearing,
Right.
so you have to really do that.
So I'm asking for something that doesn't exist now.
Right.
Okay, that's why I asked the question.
But you can always hold a hearing, a general notice. But once you start specifically
Okay.
noticing people as parties in interest, that gives them a rebuttable standing in court. And that's why remember we went through that whole thing
Yeah.
with the turbines for the zoning bylaw and stuff like that. We were going to go about 1,000 feet. But that gives those folks all a rebuttable standing. So, but I got it, you want to have some sort of public discussion and disclosure with regards to the reuse of the landfill.
Yes.
And the solar array. Okay,
That was,
that's fine.
I was asked to bring that up from this morning's meeting that I had.
Okay. And then, under your general,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I still have, under future agenda items.
Go ahead.
Right. I think that we need to have the subcommittees report. We're about due for one of those. We usually do that about every 2 or 3 months. And the people that are representing the planning board in other areas report. And we haven't done that for a while.
Committee report, okay.
Okay. Want to do them all in one night?
That's what we usually do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ken, you got any? Bob, you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Then I do have one thing under a sort of a general correspondence. I know there's a verbal
No, you can have it.
communication
You can
to the
frame it.
board. I just want to let the board know that the 2014 Open Space and Recreation Plan that has been conditionally approved by the state is online on the town's webpage if you want to look at it. We're going after some final approvals. And one of the things I need to do is alert the planning board that it's available for your perusal. Same thing with the selectmen and some other committees. If you want copies, we can get you copies. But I just alert you at a public forum under a verbal communication correspondence that it's available online. Sort of a procedural thing. If you have any questions, give me a call, stop by. We've been doing that since 1993. Actually, the first one was done by John Wood in 1983. It was done every 5 years. It makes us eligible for land grants, park grants, used to be urban self-help and self-help grants. That's how we built the Charlie Park Fields and other things. So just a public announcement to the board that's available.
And what's the name of that again, please?
It's the Open Space, the 2014 Open Space and Recreation Plan. It's on the town's webpage. You see it right there, along with the various action-type plans. You'll see also the hazard mitigation plan for the FEMA grants. This is the open space plan that gets federal and state open space and recreation grants.
The title again is 2014 Open Space,
and Recreation Plan.
so they can just search by that and probably find it right away.
They'll come right up.
How does that dovetail with our local comprehensive plan?
It references the goals and policies of the plan. So it might say one of the goals is to have 30% open space. So some of the action items will be to acquire more land on the moraine or other lands within coastal pond districts. The local comprehensive plan sets goals and policies. This is what's a lower level plan called an action plan, an implementation plan.
And this,
It follows the
you and
state
Marlene developed this plan, isn't that
It's
correct?
actually a state formula. The state has the guidelines, we just follow their guidelines, it does so much information and whatnot. They've been around for a long time, but this is state formula plan. This Department of Conservation and Recreation puts out the requirements for the plan. We just follow their manual.
But you and Marlene did the work,
Right.
so congratulations. You should be, I hope your names are on it. Planning staff, no recognition at all? Well, you're getting it right now.
It's never has, it's the 96, 2001, 2005, it's like the 4th one we've done.
So how much time is required to do that?
About a year's worth of work, but we do it over time.
A year's worth of work,
It's about a one-man year.
and there's no recognition. Wow.
Well, I get recognized every week, a token of the town's appreciation.
Payday, yeah.
Also, under your next meeting, I didn't put it down there, but you'll be meeting again next week. Also, we're going to have a joint meeting scheduled with the Board of Selectmen on March the 10th. So be aware of that. We're going to have the Main Street Corridor Project come in with their consultants. And I'm hopeful that, I haven't had a discussion with the commission yet about the Davis Straits, but for sure, McMahon Associates will be updating you progress of the corridor study on Main Street. So
What day, is that our
That's the
meeting or their
that's-
meeting? It's a
that's a home
Tuesday?
game for you. It's Tuesday night,
Tuesday.
March the 10th.
Okay, the only correspondence I found in the file was the letter, so there isn't anything else?
No.
Anybody?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.